Our facilitators today are Michael Hammond and Aaron Rothert. Michael Hammond is the founding father of Atticus and a certified practice advisor in addition to being a licensed attorney since 1983. He spent his entire career either practicing law or managing marketing initiatives within the legal profession. For over 20 years, Michael served as the Senior Vice President of Marketing for Attorneys Title Insurance Fund, whose sole purpose was promoting and supporting law firms. In addition to new business development, Michael has a depth of experience in public relations, branding, and strategic planning. He earned his JD from the University of Florida College of Law and his BA from Stanford University. He served on the Public Relations Committee of the American Land Title Association, as the Vice Chair of the Public and Member Information Committee, as a member of the Task Force on Lawyer Advertising for the Florida Bar, and on the Futures Committee of the State Bar of Texas. He also writes a marketing column for Lawyers USA. Aaron Rothert, also an Atticus Practice Advisor, is an attorney, a former instructor for the Internal Revenue Service, and has worked with the State Attorney's Office in Florida. Aaron facilitates the Atticus Rainmakers and Rainmakers Plus programs, which trains attorneys to be great marketers. He's been published in the Family Law Journal and blogs regularly on time management and marketing for attorneys. So Michael and Aaron, I'll go ahead and turn the webinar over to you.
Thank you, Susan. This is Aaron Rothert, and I'm going to get us started. Because we're talking about taking advantage of the holidays for marketing, I'd like to take a minute or two to look at one of my favorite holiday stories, books, which is Dickens' A Christmas Carol. But rather than looking at Ebenezer Scrooge, the main character, I'd like to take a look at one of the minor characters in the story, that being Old Fezziwig, Scrooge's former employer. Now, Old Fezziwig knew how to throw a party. He threw a party that even Ebenezer Scrooge enjoyed, and everyone turned up. Not only did everyone turn up, everyone brought a friend. And while we may not all throw a party like Fezziwig, and according to Dickens, no one threw a party like Old Fezziwig, no one danced like him, ate like him, sang like him, we can all take note of something that Old Fezziwig knew. He knew that a small investment can produce a lot of joy and goodwill, especially during the holidays. And he was strategic about it. If we look at the end of the scene in which we take a look at Scrooge's past and what happened with Old Fezziwig, we see that as everyone left the party, there was Fezziwig at the door, shaking hands with everyone as they left and giving them a holiday greeting. What we'd like to do today, as we go through this presentation, is to take a look at 7 strategies that we can all use to be a little bit more like Old Fezziwig. Perhaps we're not partying like Old Fezziwig or spending the money that he did, but we can all make small investments that produce a lot of joy and goodwill, that produce a lot of marketing results, especially during the holidays. To facilitate this, what we're going to be looking at is being thoughtful, making a list and checking it twice, saying thank you, getting personal, getting out and about, being different, and committing to continued improvement. So the first strategy that we want to look at is being thoughtful. The first step in being thoughtful is planning ahead. Old Fezziwig, if we look back to him, he planned a party that everyone enjoyed. In order to do that, he had to sort of think through it and do a little bit of planning. So if we start by remembering Old Fezziwig, we can remember that he had music and food, all of those things that guests would enjoy, but also those things that he himself enjoyed as well. So we need to take time to begin thinking through these things and how we're going to strategically use the holiday marketing season. The time to start thinking about the holiday marketing season is now. As we go through our marketing activities, come into marketing contacts, we need to begin to take notes. Note those we come in contact with interests, notate their likes, and look around and notate community needs. And then as you take those notes, begin to use them. Begin to use them to identify gifts that might be appropriate for that great referral source, an event that might be great to throw for your community, a charitable cause that stands out to you as being really necessary. If you get stuck, then the strategy that I would recommend is to think about the most memorable gift you ever received. As you remember that gift, think about what that gift meant to you and why it meant what it meant, and begin to use those thoughts as a bridge to make connections between yourself and your referral sources to see what would be memorable for them. Michael, did you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, I think you covered it pretty well, Aaron, and I'm going to be going back and reinforcing some of the points you made, especially about starting to think about marketing during the holidays now.
And I also wanted to mention, as we begin to think about marketing now, is to remember those super networkers. So I like to think of old Fezziwig as a super networker. I don't think he ever met a stranger. And so we all know those people that know a few more people than everyone else. On average, most of our contacts know between 50 and 500 people. That's the circles in which we operate. Those who are DIs and IDs on a DISC profile generally know between 500 and 1,500 people. So as you begin to think through your marketing strategies, begin to think about who those super networkers are and think about them as a gateway to a larger network. So you have them, you have the connection there, they have a connection beyond what you're able to reach. And determine strategies for reaching those that they are in contact with. How can you be thoughtful in their lives so that they think to connect you with their larger network? The next point that we're going to discuss is making a list and checking it twice, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Michael for that.
Thank you, Aaron. The make a list, check it twice strategy is really the place to get started. So which referral sources should you invest your time and money in during the holidays? Well, here's how you find out. And there are 3 steps you need to take. First, make a list of the referral sources that have sent you the most business during the last year. Now, in doing this, you may discover that it's been a while since you updated your top 20 list. And if it has been more than, I'd say, about 6 months since you updated your top 20, do that first. The reason that's important is you want to make sure that you're contacting the right people for the right reasons, and that the connections you make during the holidays are going to be with people who you know are much more likely to send business to you. So if you haven't updated the top 20 list, make sure you do that. And I guarantee you, you'll be surprised at how much has changed. People move up that list, people move down that list. Some people turn up on that list that weren't there before, and some names that you assume will be on the list are no longer there. So take the time to update your top 20 list. Now second, the next thing you're going to do is add referral sources that have sent some business, but you know or have good reason to believe that they could send you a good deal more business. And in doing this, you might want to refer back to your farm team. Look at your farm team list to identify people who you have already earmarked as being your top referral source prospects. Now, these are not people who have sent you business yet, but they're people who you believe have great potential to send business to you. And as you all recall from the farm team concept, the whole idea is that you have a list of people who you can develop as great referral sources. And using the holidays is a great time to do that. And third, next group is you're going to add clients who send you significant business and or a lot of recurring work. And by going back and updating your business list, you'll know who has been sending you the most significant cases and who has been sending you business on a regular basis. And remember, satisfied clients always have the potential to become great referral sources for you. Okay, so once you've identified the people in these three groups, focus your holiday marketing efforts on the people on this big combined list. And to get started, first identify who on that list you'd like to get to know better. Then invite these referral sources out to lunch or to dinner in particular to thank them for the business they've sent to you. Now, why do these folks get invitations to break bread with you? Well, because there's no substitute for time spent face-to-face to build rapport and trust with someone. FaceTime is the best, the most efficient, and the most effective way to get to know someone better. Now, circling back to the beginning for a moment, don't forget about your top 20. And speaking of getting to know people better, how well do you know your top 20? I mean, since these people are your best, most reliable, and most productive referral sources, you should know them well enough to know of a great personalized gift that they'd really enjoy having. You should know enough about their hobbies and interests, their passions, things that they, causes they support, to be able to think of a great personalized gift that you know would mean a lot to them. Now, if you don't know them that well, your goal going forward should be to spend more face time with them until you do know them that well. So, Aaron, anything you'd like to add to our discussion about making our list and checking it twice?
No, not specifically to that list, but I think there is an additional list that we need to be aware of, and that's the thank you list. Okay. And so the third strategy that I'd like to discuss is the strategy of saying thank you. Or, and so the holidays are a great time to either start a thank you habit or to reinforce a thank you habit that's already established. So in our electronic age, a thank you note that's on paper, that's handwritten, really means something. It represents thought and time invested. It shows that you cared enough to go out and consider notes, purchase notes, take time to think about something to write, handwrite it, get a stamp, and put it in the mail. And so there's a lot involved there, and I think a lot more meaning than an email or a text message, which has become the norm for communicating if we send a thank you at all. Things that you should send thank you notes for are referral meetings, referred clients, thanking people for gifts that they sent. Any opportunity that you can send a thank you, I would say go ahead and send that thank you note. So to get a thank you habit started, you have a few options for sort of creating this system within your office. Of course, you can do it yourself. In order to do that, I would suggest going out and getting custom thank you notes. You can order them online. You can have a printing company print them up for you, something with the office logo or your initials. Whatever you do, make sure it's good quality paper, that the note itself, it exudes a sense of quality and a sense of pride in your organization. If you're going to do it this way, have those notes available within arm's reach so that you can access them quickly, fill them out as soon as that thank you pops into your head. The other option is to use a pre-printed card. So you go out and you customize your card for your office, but you have something pre-printed on the inside, a general thank you. That way you don't have to think through as much when writing out a full thank you note. There's not as much white space to fill. If you choose this option, I would say to include something personalized there, at least a line. Go back to being thoughtful and thinking through your top 20, knowing their interests, and tie what you've talked about in your conversation or the specific issue that you've dealt with together into that thank you. So it's personalized to a degree. You can also enlist the help of your team. Have someone in your team go out and purchase the thank you notes. Give them some guidelines and empower them to go out and make that purchase. Have general scripts available so that your team can write out the thank you notes, bring it to you to add a note yourself and sign. You can also completely delegate the task in which all of the steps are taken by your team. In this case, I would still say that there needs to be some personalization in the note from yourself. So the full task can be delegated to the team. They can take care of everything from the language in the note to the note itself, to the mailing, sending out, identifying who needs to be thanked. But you need to have the final review and sign the note or add a personal note yourself at the end if you choose that message or that route. And so I do have a few additional tips. Once you've chosen how you're going to get the thank you notes out, what strategy is going to work best for you. The first is to be sure to send a thank you note quickly. So as soon as a matter is finished, as soon as you've completed a lunch and gone back to the office, as soon as you've received a gift, make sure you have a running list of what you need to send thank yous out for. Get it on that list and set a deadline for it so the thank you note goes out quickly. Sending out a thank you note a month after something occurred isn't going to have the impact that a thank you note a couple days after the event would have. Now, if 30 days have passed and you missed the opportunity to send the thank you note, go ahead and pick up the phone. That way, you're getting in contact with them more quickly than it will take to reach them through the mail. Time isn't passing. They know you were concerned enough or moved enough or invested enough to give them a call to thank them personally for what occurred. Again, keep those thank you notes within arm's reach. If you have to search for the thank you notes, then the thank you notes are going to end up on your procrastination list. So make sure they're available so that when you have your time blocked to do thank yous, they're within arm's reach, in a desk drawer on the corner of your desk, in a some small storage device on your desk so you can reach them quickly, pull them out, and write your thank yous. It's a good idea to have a notebook there with them as well where you keep that running tab of what thank yous you need to send out. And then finally, if you do delegate these responsibilities, or if you do use pre-printed cards, don't send the same old letter. If you've sent a thank you with the pre-printed verbiage once, change the pre-printed verbiage before you send it to the same person again. Otherwise, you've just lost all of the effort that's put into the time invested in sending that thank you note. It becomes a little less personal than it could have been. So don't send that same tired thank you letter out over and over again. And Michael, did you have anything to add in relation to thank yous?
No, I think you covered it very well, Aaron. Thanks. I think one thing I might add about the thank you note is don't ever forget the power of a personal note, a handwritten note to someone. As Aaron mentioned, we all live in a virtual tsunami of emails, both personally and professionally. And all of a sudden, that personalized note, taking time to write to someone, indicating your interest and thoughtfulness, suddenly that stands out now because it is so rare. So always remember the power of that. Now, the fourth holiday marketing strategy is get personal. Now, I'm going to refer back to something we mentioned a little bit earlier. Remember, gifts that reflect your knowledge of a referral source's hobbies, interests, and passions are always the most thoughtful. Now, here are a few examples of what I mean when I say get personal. Number one, consider a generous gift card for a fine dining experience at a famous restaurant for someone on your top 20 list who's a passionate foodie. Or number two, if a referral source is an avid golfer and you happen to share that passion, then how about 18 holes at your country club, including lunch and drinks at the clubhouse? That's something you do together. You would both enjoy it, and you'd have a whole afternoon to get to know each other a little bit better. Now, number three, if one of your top 20 is a lover of fine scotch, how about a gift of a bottle of a well-aged, hard-to-come-by single malt? That would certainly get their attention and indicate that you know how much they love it. Now, finally, number four, consider a signed copy of the latest book by a famous novelist for a referral source who you know is a truly devoted fan of that writer. That, too, is a highly personalized gift. Now, the golf example shows us that there are other ways to get personal. Consider giving back in a way that reflects your own interests and passions. If you're passionate about a cause, the holiday can provide great opportunities to give back. Maybe there's a particular charity that might resonate with your clients and has a direct tie to your practice area and to the legal services you provide. I mean, for example, a family law attorney could demonstrate their support for a women's shelter or a children's charity in their marketplace and do that during the holidays. But whatever cause or charity you choose, you could extend the holiday cheer and show your ongoing support throughout the year. Or consider hosting an annual signature event fundraiser. These are all ways that you can raise the visibility of your firm, enhance your brand, extend the reach of your promotion about your firm and your practice to other audiences who are less familiar with you, and really develop a reputation in your marketplace that's tied directly to the type of law you practice. I guess the one thing I would say in particular about getting personal is avoid at all costs the obligatory fruit basket that you end up sending to someone at the last minute because you didn't take the time to think about something else, or you didn't start early enough to come up with a better gift. So get personal by starting early and thinking this through. Aaron, do you have any other ideas about how we can get personal during the holidays?
Well, in getting personal, I think one of the keys is making that personal contact.
Yes, absolutely.
I think a great opportunity for making that personal contact is all of the holiday events that occur. There are a myriad of holiday parties or events thrown by family, friends, and colleagues that we will be invited to. And so an element of that is taking them up on that invitation that they've provided and actually getting out and about to take advantage of all of the activities that are taking place during the holiday season. So in getting out and about, the first step is to find out what events are taking place and then actually go. So I know often I feel overwhelmed at the number of parties that are taking place at the holidays, and I can't figure out which ones I need to attend or should attend or I'm not going to be able to attend. But often we sort of have an idea ahead of time what events are going to be taking place. And if we take a little bit of time ahead of time to plan and determine which events are going to be best for us, which we're going to authentically enjoy the most, authentically be able to participate in the most, or feel the most obligated to attend, we can prioritize those and make sure that we make it to those events. The events become a great way to maintain top-of-mind awareness and create goodwill in the community, especially as Michael was saying, if there's a charitable event occurring that you can authentically participate in, go. Participate in it. Find that joy for yourself, be authentic there, and create a little goodwill in the community there as well. But within getting out and about, if you just go and attend every single event and talk to a few people and just have a good time, there's not necessarily an effective marketing strategy there. So you've gone, you've made some top-of-mind awareness, you've created a little goodwill, but you haven't gotten strategic. And so the next tip that I would have is to set goals for yourself. If you're going to an event where there are a lot of people that you'd like to establish relationships with, then set a goal for the number of people you'd like to meet and have an authentic conversation with. Develop a little bit of rapport with them. Ask them questions about what they're doing, what their needs are, what's going on in their lives to develop that relationship. I find that when you set the goal for the number of contacts that you'd like to come into, you'll end up often exceeding that goal and really enjoying yourself. So at first it may seem like a drag to attend an event you don't want to attend, but if you add that gamesmanship sort of element to it, that I'm going to meet this number of people, the event suddenly becomes more interesting and has a purpose. The third thing that I would recommend is to utilize strategic conversations. The strategic conversations that I'm talking about are the laser talk, the interview, and storytelling. And each of these conversations provides you with a little bit of leverage to turn an ordinary conversation, words that you would normally speak with someone at a party, into a marketing opportunity. So the first strategic conversation that I would like to discuss is the laser talk. The laser talk, you may also have heard it referred to as an elevator speech, is kind of the answer to the question, what do you do for a living, and then some. And so what you're looking at with the laser talk is identifying who you support, so the type of clients that you work with. You're looking at what the reason that they're coming to you, so in their desire to, and then how you do it, how you provide the benefit to the clients, and then what's unique about you. And the idea here is that when someone asks you what you do, instead of saying that I'm a lawyer, them saying, oh, telling a lawyer joke and walking away, you're giving them something to actually attach to, something that's a little more personal, to begin asking questions. And when they begin asking you questions, they're asking you to market to them. And it's something that occurs on a regular basis. People ask what you do for a living. You give a response. And this is just taking advantage of that natural conversation. If they don't ask more questions, fine, you can move on. If they do, Great, you have the rest of the information from your laser talk that's basically a mini marketing structure to walk them through really what it is you do, give them an understanding of what it is you do, and provide them with an opportunity to connect you with people who need what you're providing. The next conversation is the interview. The idea behind the interview is really asking questions when you're having conversations with people. Instead of simply talking about yourself, promoting yourself, really asking them what their needs are or what they're going through to make a personal connection. Often we look at marketing as sort of puffing ourselves up and saying how great we are and the benefits we can provide. When we do that, we tend to miss a personal connection with referral sources and with clients. And when we begin to ask questions, we start to reestablish that personal connection and really differentiate ourselves in the marketing scene. I find the interview works well with current referral sources, but can also work just as well with a referral source that you're just coming in contact with. The ultimate goal in the interview is that when you're having this strategic conversation with individuals, you're doing about 20% of the talking and you're allowing them to do about 80% of the talking. The last strategic conversation that I'd like to talk about is storytelling. Now, we all have stories to tell, and this often is what conversation boils down to at these types of parties when someone finds out that you're a lawyer. What sort of stories do you have? What can you tell me? Because people are pre-programmed to learn and enjoy stories. For example, we all enjoy reading books, going to the movies, telling stories, talking with each other. There's a huge history of oral tradition within the world. We're programmed to receive information through stories. And we all tell stories when we have conversations with people. What I would suggest in using storytelling as a marketing strategy is to identify those stories that you tell most often, your best stories. And think about them and think about what marketing messages they're conveying. The stories that I'd really like you to focus on are, if you've not begun looking at storytelling, are why you became a lawyer, why you chose the practice area that you're a part of, and the most difficult or exciting thing that you've done within your practice area. The reason these questions are important, especially the first two, is because they're going to identify why you do what you do. And often they'll link back to the laser talk. So if you find that you say to yourself that I'd really like to develop a laser talk, but I'm stuck, then I say start with storytelling. Answer the questions, why did I become a lawyer and why did I choose my practice area, and begin to really define the messages there. Because those are the personal messages that are going to connect with those you're talking with. If you go about it that way, you'll find that if you use the laser talk is going to naturally connect to storytelling later. And you have a little marketing strategy put together that's going to feel comfortable for you and not feel forced. Within these strategic conversations, I would also suggest practicing them a little bit. Because if you write them down, often our written word is a little more formal than the way that we talk. So if you have it written down, speak it. Say it to your friends, use it out in the wild. Let it go a little bit and become comfortable with it. That way, when someone asks what you do for a living, you have a good answer that will produce questions from the person that you're talking to. Basically, it's them asking you to market to them, and you have a way to move through that conversation comfortably. Now, the last thing that I want to mention in storytelling is going back to that idea of identifying your good stories. Some people fall into the trap of taking a story and then trying to force a message into it. And often that's going to come across as awkward and clunky and just not make sense and sort of fall flat, have no impact. So I like to take a look at Ernest Hemingway is one of my favorite authors, and the book Old Man and the Sea, which is full of symbolism, message, kind of this huge Hemingway marketing tool for his view on things. And people asked Ernest, they said, hey, Ernest, how did you fit so much message, so much symbolism into this story? And Hemingway's response was basically, what symbolism? The man's a man, the boat's a boat, the fish is a fish, and the shark is a shark. Basically saying, I just wrote a good story. And in a good story, there exists symbols and message. So I'm not suggesting that we all become Hemingway. I'm especially not suggesting that we all move to Key West and spend our time in bars writing books. I don't know that that's an effective way to practice law, but what I am stating is Hemingway was a great writer, and he was onto something, that a good story has symbols in it already. And if you've already got a good story, the symbols are there. Identify them, and that way you can use them strategically for marketing. So, Michael, did you have anything to add for getting out and about or those strategic conversations?
Well, yeah, about storytelling in particular. Storytelling is probably my favorite of the three strategic conversations, and I think in some ways it's the ugly duckling of the three strategic conversations. I think it's one people maybe spend less time with, don't think about as often, don't use as much as they could and should. And one other tip I give you for thinking about stories is, you never want the stories to be a kind of thinly veiled commercial for how great you are. Nobody wants to hear that kind of message from you. So you can consider going the other way, go in the opposite direction. And instead of thinking of a story where you're the hero, think about a story that puts you in a more vulnerable light, or a time when you made a mistake, or something that was maybe a lesson you learned as a young lawyer that was particularly enlightening and helpful to you. Sometimes stories about us that put us in a vulnerable light, that are a little more self-effacing, really do much more to convey who and what we are on a much more human and personal level than ones that are sort of aggrandizing for us. So, think about those kinds of stories as well. Sometimes the very best stories are ones where we really present a much more human and vulnerable side of ourselves. Now, the sixth holiday marketing strategy is a reminder to be different. And being different is something both Aaron and I have mentioned a couple of times already. During the holidays, and most especially before the holidays, follow the first rule of marketing, which is differentiate yourself. And, differentiate yourself really means give someone a reason to choose you and your firm over all the other people who do what you do. It's that part of the laser talk where you present something about you that's unique, that's memorable. So the first rule of marketing is always differentiate yourself. Now, there's a reason we're having this call in August, as Aaron mentioned at the outset, which is really a good 2 to 3 months before the onset of the holiday season. And we all know that the holidays are a very busy, noisy time of the year for everyone, which means that it's one of the worst times to get people's attention. So in order to counteract that, do some advanced thinking and planning now to determine how you will differentiate yourself effectively then when the holiday season starts. Decide now, well before the rush of the holidays for you and everybody else, who you'll invite to lunch or dinner and when you'll do it. So start scheduling now before people's calendars fill up while you can still get their attention. Decide for whom and just how you will personalize gifts. You know, for your best referral sources. Figure out what is the personalized gift that would really convey how much you know them and appreciate them. Think of it now and start ordering those gifts. Which holiday events you're going to attend. Start thinking about that now. Plan ahead. Put them down in your calendar. Think about why that particular event is important to your marketing efforts, and then go a little bit further and decide who you're going to make a point of meeting when you're there. Oftentimes, we can find out who's going to attend an event in advance. Find out who's going and decide who you want to meet and make a point of meeting them. I think one of the things that happens to us, it happens to us all the time, but it's especially true during the holidays, is we tend to sort of roughly equate socializing with marketing. You know, if we show up to an event and people see us there and we talk to some people, then we're marketing. Well, you're not really marketing. You're socializing. Marketing means you have a particular business purpose for being there. And there are particular marketing goals that you're trying to accomplish while you're there. Now, that's not to say that you can't enjoy yourself while you're doing it, but be clear about what you want to achieve. Meet the people you want to meet. Have a purpose in mind and accomplish that purpose. Be intentional and creative now, 2 to 3 months out before the holiday season starts. Be intentional and creative in finding ways to differentiate yourself and stand out from the holiday herd. Now, yet another way to differentiate yourself is to consider celebrating something different. You could, for example, differentiate yourself by choosing a different holiday at a different time of year when it's easier for you and your marketing efforts to stand out, get noticed, and be memorable. You could, for example, consider thanking referral sources in a memorable way after Halloween, but well before Thanksgiving, in the true spirit of that national holiday. Thank them for the business they've sent to you. Show them how much you appreciate it. You could also think about having a party or developing a firm signature event tied to a different, maybe what we might call a second-tier holiday that falls in another less busy time of year, like Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day, Memorial Day, Labor Day, or even Halloween. Remember what we talked about earlier in the Get Personal section. You could create an event and tie it into a holiday that might resonate with your client base and connect well with your practice area and the legal services you provide. We talked about the family law firm that showed their support for a women's shelter or a children's charity. Maybe do that around Valentine's Day, or maybe even connect it to Mother's Day or Father's Day. But think of things that tie back to your firm and your practice area and will resonate with the people who use those services. The point is that any holiday really is a good time to be thoughtful, to be generous, to be memorable, different, and yes, even exceptional. And think of ways you can achieve those goals in your holiday marketing, no matter what holiday you choose to tie those marketing efforts to. Aaron, anything else you'd like to add about being different?
No, I think you covered that subject pretty thoroughly there. I really like the idea of celebrating something that is what we've listed here as a second-tier holiday. That way, you're really sort of standing out, giving that particular holiday its due, and not getting lost in that hustle and bustle of what we consider the normal holiday season.
That's right.
That's a great thing to sort of latch onto, especially for a signature event or a community event.
Well, and by making that point, we're not trying to discourage anybody from using the holiday season. I mean, that in some ways is what this call is mostly about. But if you do, and if you want to take advantage of the opportunity to market that the holiday season presents to us, you got to plan in advance. You got to think about it ahead of time and set that ball in motion so that you really can be memorable and different and unique during the holiday season. So Aaron, what about the seventh and final strategy?
So with the seventh and final strategy, I feel like this should be a strategy that we talk about in any marketing conversation. And that strategy is a commitment to continued improvement. And there are a few tips that I'd like to give in order to ensure that as you're developing your marketing plan, going through your marketing strategy, that you can stick to this commitment. So the first thing to do is to set goals. And we've talked about it kind of over and over again, this idea of planning ahead. The reason we're having the conversation now is so you can plan ahead. In order to set accurate goals, you've got to plan ahead. It's difficult to set goals when you're already at the party or already in the marketing event or already participating in something. You need that foresight to look and see what your goal will be in the future as you go through your marketing plan. When you set the goals, set it as something that you can put a number to, a number of new contacts you'd like to add to your list, a number of lunches, 2 to 3 a week that I'd like to have in my marketing plan, a number of times that I'm able to take my passions or interests and combine them with my marketing activities, so I can begin to reclaim those or leverage those for the purpose of marketing. A number of clients that I've received as a result of my marketing efforts. So something that you can actually track and put a number to so that it makes sense and it's measurable. After you set your goals, you need to develop a strategy. So I would suggest a weekly or monthly marketing plan where you're looking at each month, taking the time to set up the strategy for that month and how you're going to achieve your goals in that month. Also, taking a step back for larger events or for times that are going to be extremely busy, if you have a stressful court schedule at a particular time of year, or as we're doing now, looking at the holiday season coming up, taking that time well in advance to develop the strategy to make sure that you don't neglect marketing in those stressful or busy times. After you've developed a strategy, the next thing to do is to begin implementing that strategy, to actually take those practical steps. And that's where those weekly plannings, monthly plannings really become so valuable, because you're outlining specific steps to implement your strategy in order to achieve your goals for marketing. And the last, probably most important element to the commitment to continued improvement is accountability. I think there is something to be said for the impact that making our goals, our strategies, and our implementation known to others. So talk about it. Let your family know what's going on. Let your staff know what's going on. Let them know what they should be expecting in the future. Send out that flyer about the event. That's going to provide that extra edge, that extra bit of accountability that might be necessary to help you push through to achieve those goals. So speaking it out and making it known is going to have a huge impact on your ability to achieve those goals. I think another strategy within accountability is the support found in marketing groups, whether that's a structured group or something that you develop on your own with colleagues or with friends, where you're each invested in each other's success. You can sort of hold each other accountable to your goals and to your progress within marketing. And the last thing that I'd like to say to sort of tie this all together is to sort of continue to ask ourselves, how can I be a bit more like old Fezziwig, especially within holiday marketing? In what activities can I spend a little to achieve a lot in the way of joy and goodwill? In what ways can I spend a little to really have a big impact for my marketing strategy during the holidays? So I'd like you to really think about that in your commitment to continued improvement, especially in the context of holiday marketing. So what I'm going to do is hand it back over to Susan to see if we have enough time to take any questions, or if we had any questions to see what we can address from here.
Okay, Aaron, thank you. We do have one question. Scott asks, how can we find out about events to which we are not specifically invited, and is it okay to crash those events if no invite received?
Aaron, you want me to field this one?
Sure.
Well, I think, Scott, you can almost always find out about events usually through your peers, through your colleagues, through your friends. And during the holidays, there are certainly a lot of them, and people probably go to more of them during that time than any other time of the year. If it is an event that you would like to attend but don't have an invitation to, I guess my advice is it's probably best not to crash it. At least the people who organized and put on the event, I know from being in that position myself, you definitely want to know how many people are coming, and who of the people who you invited have indicated they're coming. So to have a lot of extra people show up is sometimes difficult. But again, because you heard about these events largely through friends of yours, colleagues of yours, peers, other professionals, sometimes you can talk with them about, could you come to that event, maybe as their guest, and if they need to work that out with the organizers, do it enough in advance that they have time to do that. You know, I think crashing is certainly the easiest and the fastest way to get to an event, but a lot of things can happen when you crash a party, and many of them are not so good. So I check it out with people who you know or have reason to believe already have some connection to that organization first, and start from there.
Yeah, I agree. I think you know, take a look at the event and see if it is something that's a bit more open. And if it's not, if it would really be crashing, I think crashing has the potential to have a lot more negative impact than positive, ultimately. So I would look for that strategic pathway to see what relationship could be developed to receive that authentic invitation.
Susan, did we have any other questions?
No, the two of you have been pretty thorough. That was the only question that we've had.
Okay.
And we are at about 1 o'clock, so we're very close if you want to give any closing remarks.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for being part of today's call, and we hope that some of the suggestions we've made will be useful to you, and that you begin to think of the holiday season as the great time for marketing that it truly is. And if you decide to go down this road, start now. The best advice I can give you is think about it now, make your plans now, and the more thoroughly you do that before the hubbub of the holidays kicks in, the more likely they'll be successful and productive. So I'm sure both Aaron and I wish you all the happiest of holidays, and we hope that any marketing efforts you have during that time are very successful.
Thank you.